Microsoft Word workshop, and in part 2 we're going to start adding content to our document. If you remember, in part 1 it was all about setting up the document, the page size, the margins, the fonts, the different styles, and the different sections in our document. And now in part 2 we're going to start to add some basic content to the document. I'm going, in this session, specifically in this session, we're going to use headings, and I will add a chapter 1 and a chapter 2, and in between I will use a couple of the headings of the styles that we've set up in part 1 of this series, and in between I'm going to add some random text. I've used a random text generator, and that is the text that will be added, so it is not any meaningful text that will be added to our document. It is only for illustrative purposes. So let's kick this off straight away. We're not going to do anything to the title page, we're not going to do anything to the contents pages, but we're going to start to work in our main body. So as usual, let's start off by saving our document to make sure that our work is saved from the beginning. And as I said, we will start by adding 2 chapters, and this will be chapter 1, and we will call this our research overview. Right, so as you can see from our styles, our heading and our type has been automatically made in caps, all caps, and that was the way that we've set up our heading 1, and we've got a line and everything that we've set up in our styles in part 1 of our workshop. And whenever we start a new chapter, we want to kick that chapter off with an introduction. So I'm going to add our introduction, select heading 2, and I'm going to write there introduction. As you can see, introduction, as you can see, Microsoft Word has automatically added the 1.1 in front of introduction. Right, I just want to remove the spacing because we don't want any unnecessary spacing there. And then I'm going to use my random text generator. The moment that I press enter, so I've written introduction, the moment that I press enter, you will see in Microsoft it automatically changes, the word automatically jumps from heading 1 to the normal heading, because this is where we're going to start with our actual document. So in the introduction, I will add a couple of paragraphs. Like I said, that has been created in a random text generator, and that is the start of our introduction. I'm going to remove that space because remember, in our heading 2 we've set that up that there's an automatic space of 12. You'll see that gray bar there at the bottom. That is the 12 space. If you remember in our heading 2, modify, remember here in our paragraph, that 12 after, that spacing after that 12 there is indicated by that gray bar there. So that is that 12, the 1.5 line spacing plus the 12, that is right after our heading. So we don't need to press an extra enter to make an additional line spacing. So if we go to our special characters, you'll see there, that's my only special character now because I've put in the extra line spacing there. So I want to remove that. You'll see my line spacing after the paragraph is still there. Right, so let's switch off our special characters. This is our introduction, and then what we want to add is I want to show you heading 2, and this is additional heading, and this is after the introduction. Maybe we're going to have an overview of your research, and let's insert that. Now after heading 2, remember you just wrote your overview. Now if we want to break this part of our main of this overview into smaller sections, we're always going to start with a little bit of an introduction. So we're going to have a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll have our heading 3, which will state overview part 1. If we want to start that with an introduction, we don't want to just start with a new heading here. We want to introduce a little bit, and then we'll have our first part. I'll write something about that, and then have our next subheading, and we'll add some more content there, and we'll call that overview part 2, and we'll enter our heading, remove those spaces, all the unnecessary spaces, and we'll have that, and then we've got overview part 2, and then maybe we'll end this with a subheading. So remember what I said, we don't really want to use heading 4, but sometimes it may be necessary. Overview part 2 sub, and then we're going to add some content there, and we'll always have another, because you don't have one subheading for nothing. That will be overview part 2 sub 2, and then we're going to add some content there, and then maybe we'll end our document now with a conclusion, and we'll end our chapter 1 with a conclusion. That is the conclusion, and let's add that. And then we're going to start our chapter 2. Now you can do one of two things. You can either insert a page break under layout, remember breaks, and insert a page break. However, I personally prefer to insert a next page, so insert a new section in between chapters. But that's just a personal preference. You absolutely do not have to do that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to insert the next page, and what will most likely happen is it's going to start on page 1. So we just quickly want to correct that as we start, and I want to say format page, and I'm going to continue from previous section, and that will then chapter 2 will continue on page 4. Right, so let's go back and just have a look here, and now we're going to write in chapter 2. This is our heading, chapter 2, and we're going to write there. different levels of or different ways, or the way of adding content to your document and then using our headings that we've created in part 1. Now, the way that we want this to look is like this. So we'll go to introduction. We're not putting an space between that, but before we start with our next heading, I want to put in one space there. So that's going to be one space there. See, there's currently, if we look at our special characters, currently there's 2 spaces there, but we only want one space there. We're going to remove that. That has been inserted automatically. We just want the one space there, one space there, one space there, one space there. And let's go forward, and there's 2 spaces. We only want the one space there. Nothing. There's one. There's one. There's one. We don't want that one. And we only want the one space there. Conclusion, we don't want that space there. Right, and that has been a quick edit using our special characters. Now, let's say you start to write your literature review and you realize that maybe this part, part 1, literature part sub 2 shouldn't be there, and you want to move it into before, because maybe it just makes a little bit more sense to be before number 1. Then what is great about Word in the navigation pane is you can simply click on that and move that up, and you'll see it has been moved now sub 2. Remember previously that has been in sub after sub 1. What has happened now is we've simply just moved that, and it's automatically been renumbered. So look at that again. I'm going to press Ctrl Z to move back to what we've done. So previously that is sub 2, numbered as 2.2.2.2. Now if I move that, my sub 2, if I move that to before that, we'll see it changes to 2.2.2.1 automatically. So the numbering is automatically updated by Word if I move here in the sections. And if the literature, if maybe this literature part should be somewhere else, you can simply click on that, and it will take everything that is part of that. It will take that and move that to elsewhere in your document, wherever that is needed. Right. The last part, which is great about looking at your navigation, because eventually you will have to insert this as your table of contents, and this is how it will almost appear in your table of contents. So you can look and you can see research overview, even if it's been written in all caps, you can see there that now overview, this has been written incorrectly. So you can go in straight from your navigation pane, and you can go and fix that and change that to overview, and you see it's been fixed, and now it will also appear correctly in your table of contents eventually. So we can quickly go down here. We'll see in part 1 we want to change that to this. Part 2 we want to update that like that. Sub, I want to make this just a normal sub. That is correct. Part 1 is incorrect, so we want to fix that E there. And let part 1, you see the part and the sub is all in capitals, so we want to change that. Part 1, and we want to update that sub. It's been updated. That is all in capitals. We want to change that. LIT, everything. We want this to look consistent. This is we want to submit a neat document to your supervisor, and eventually to probably an external examiner. We want to submit as good a document as possible, which will make it easy for them to research and to mark. And that is it for part 2, session 1 of this Microsoft Word.